So do you want to sort of talk about yourself, your experience, and just like introduce yourself before we get going?
Yeah. So hi, my name's Augusta Halle. I go to Hawken Upper School in Gates Mills. And a little bit of background about how this is relevant to me is that I have a sister with a chromosomal duplication. So similar in a way to Down syndrome, but she's a lot more high functioning than that.
Mhm. So, in your experience at Hawken, especially since it's a private school, do you think that individuals and students with special needs are accommodated well enough, like in different spheres, like in the classroom, socially?
I think it's definitely different at Hawken, and it's just in the private school realm in general because of the application process. And I think that in general, learning
Mhm.
accommodations and things of that nature aren't really discussed a lot
Mhm.
at Hawken. And I know that we have a learning center, although I don't think looking at from a different public school to a private school comparison, I think that the
Right.
accommodation needs are very different because the student body is different in a way. I don't think we're
Mhm.
as diverse in
Right.
accommodations as public schools are.
Right. So I guess like one sort of like common I guess like struggle that students or like that fall under IDDs or intellectual and developmental disabilities are students with ADHD. Do you know if Hawken provides any sort of like accommodations in terms of like testing, like schooling, like work wise, like how do they sort of accommodate for those kind of needs if they don't really have, more or other kinds of uh I guess individuals representing other kinds of developmental diseases or disorders.
Yeah, I think Hawken is. Oh, geez, Louise. Oops, sorry. Oh my gosh. Now that I just said geez, Louise, my phone's like 10%. Oh my gosh. Uh, I feel that Hawken adequately, or I think it's hard to speak on the experience specifically at Hawken because I'm not someone who identifies with an IDD, but from experience and talking with friends, I think that they're pretty welcoming as far
Mhm.
as giving extended time or other accommodations of that nature. However, I think it could be a lot more, in a way, like destigmatized, and I think that it
Right.
could be a little bit more open at Hawken because I think looking at it, I don't really know a lot about it, and I do know that kids do have time accommodations and can take
Mhm.
the test wherever they want to, whether it be for like an AP timed class or just a normal course for a test. But
Yeah.
I definitely think there's room to grow at Hawken.
Yeah. Oh, there's always room for improvement. So I guess like following that train of thought, what do you think schools, maybe in general, or even just at Hawken, could do to create a more inclusive environment for students with IDDs?
Good question. What do you think? Let's switch the
Well,
interview.
yeah, we can switch narratives. So at Solon, I guess, there's a special ed department like dedicated with like a bunch of aides for different students. Obviously, because I guess of the public school experience, we have a more of a like variety, I guess, of IDDs. So there's ADHD, the learning disabilities, but also my brother who has autism. It was part of the Solon special ed program, and they have a lot of vocational training. I think that's like something that's really important. Like they teach real life skills with work, like how to work, how to like, cook, how to clean, like and especially we also have a cafe that's run by the students with special needs. I think that's
Wow.
really important. Like, yeah, they have these accommodations to, like obviously if these students have like intellectual like developmental diseases, like obviously the normal path of like getting a college education and a job isn't really a viable option. So I guess learning like real life skills, how to take care of themselves is something that's really important. But I guess similar, or maybe, yeah, similar to Hawken, like the stigma surrounding individuals with IDDs is very prevalent. Like, like in conversation, it's like easy to tell when people sort of don't really view people with IDDs as like on the same level as them or even as people. Like they just view them as like lower, which is honestly really disheartening because there's no reason that should like that stigma should be so prevalent. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's honestly a really good way to think about it. As in terms of what you said previously about how people with IDDs, and depending on like the severity or the spectrum, like some
Right.
people won't be able to have that college or that typical like academic experience or however people would
Right.
quote it. And I think that's something that's forgotten because I think school honestly most of the time prepares us or skills that might not always be as useful in life as others. And so
Right.
I think it's
Right.
like hard to sometimes think about preparation for life in general and not just
Mm,
life after school in another academic setting. But I think it's really cool that Solon does that with the
yeah.
cafe. And I would be excited to see something like that. I don't know if it would have a place at Hawken, just looking at like the spectrum of kids, but I definitely think that it could be really nice to have something like that at different schools and public schools,
Mm,
especially if you connected with the Two Foundation.
right.
Um,
Right. Food Foundation. Yeah.
Having a similar esque program for kids with
Mhm.
disabilities, I think that if I like really quickly, could I share my sister's experience a little?
Yeah. Yeah. No problem. Go ahead.
Okay. So from my sister's perspective, she really struggled in a public school setting
Mm,
because she was not getting the proper accommodations needed, whether it be she's more of a visual learner and her teacher would
right.
only speak auditorially, even when she
Mm,
asked for proper accommodations, or my mom asked because she couldn't really speak
mhm,
up for herself in a way. Um, the school really was having difficult time providing that for her. And it was also hard as they were trying to force her in with a certain kind of class because they had the
mm,
special needs, or I don't know like the proper term exactly they called it, but I think it
mm.
was a special they labeled it the special needs
Special
class.
needs. Mm,
And they weren't willing to work with my parents and work with my sister to try to integrate her better into the school. So I think that's a big problem in schools with kids with IDDs is it's kind of like they're in their own group and then
mm.
other kids are in their other group.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like kind of creating a minority in a way of kids with
Yeah.
IDDs instead of integrating them into the school.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of like a separation. Yeah, even I guess like even like having a whole separate department. Yeah, I mean I understand there's accommodations needed, but I think maybe that sort of division is what propels stigma, especially in public school. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I guess to wrap this up, what do you think, like if you had a message to maybe all schools out there, what is something you would want them to know in how to accommodate for people with IDD? Or just, maybe like a message of inclusivity.
Yeah. Um, I definitely think that we should, while it may sound cliche, treat people with the same respect regardless
Mm,
of what their situation, what their status, what their disability may be, or treat people in an equitable manner, giving them the right needs and the right accommodations that they need. And that may not be that they need to be in a separate class, but if they are, it still means that they're part of the school community. So I think it's important to make sure that everyone feels heard and everyone feels welcomed.
yeah. Well,
Go
cool.
Kindland.
Yep, go Kylie. Thank you, Augusta, for interviewing, and we'll hope to see you soon. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.